Welcome back to the Recharge Zone podcast. My name is Ann Margaret Gonzalez, and I'm joined by my co-host, Brent.
Welcome, listeners.
For the past 20 years, the EAA has taken a proactive approach to making the rain clouds in Bandera, Medina, Uvalde, and the outskirts of Bexar County more productive, making it rain more, so to speak. This initiative at our agency is known as the Precipitation Enhancement Program.
We're joined today by Bria Hyatt. Hi, Bria.
Hi.
She is a state licensed program meteorologist for the South Texas Weather Modification Association, and she's here today to talk to us all about precipitation enhancement, so weather modification. So, Bria, to start out, can you tell us, our listeners, a little bit more about precipitation enhancement? What is this all about, and how does it work?
Of course. So precipitation enhancement is just also known as cloud seeding or weather modification. And it's a technique aimed at stimulating clouds to generate more rainfall than they would otherwise. So this is performed through the process of seeding agents such as silver iodide and calcium chloride. And the primary goal of precipitation enhancement is to increase rainfall or snowfall in areas experiencing a lack of water.
And how does it, if you can explain it, I know it's quite technical, but if you can explain it in general terms to our audience, how it works, how it functions.
Yeah, so not all cumulus clouds become rain producers. In fact, only a small percentage of them ever develop the capability to produce an appreciable amount of rainfall. And those convective clouds that do produce rain are often inefficient. Only a tiny fraction of moisture or cloud droplets is ever used to grow large rain droplets, which ultimately fall to the ground as rain. This may be due to the fact that an insufficient number of ice particles exist within the cloud, which limits the amount of cloud droplets that can coalesce to create raindrops. So if you whenever I say coalesce, whenever you think of, you're driving in your car on a rainy day and you see the rain on your windshield. And then you see smaller drops kind of collect into the larger drops, and then they kind of just fall off your rain or off your windshield. So that's what I'm talking about as far as that. So the clouds simply don't live long enough on their own to allow those tiny droplets to collide with enough times with neighboring drops to create larger drops. So seeding is intended to introduce into the cloud many more of these ice crystals, also called cloud nuclei, and it allows much more of the moisture supply within the cloud to be converted to rain.
So these clouds are clouds that would not carry a lot of rain normally, but they have moisture in them, and you're just kind of helping them along.
Exactly.
So is this kind of equivalent to when you're outside and you see it looks like it's going to rain on the horizon and it looks like really dark and gloomy and you're like, oh, it's like definitely going to storm and rain. And then it doesn't. So essentially you all are going to those clouds and seeding them, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of just giving Mother Nature a little nudge and just helping her along in the process.
Nice.
So can you tell us a little bit of your background? This is kind of a sort of a niche field and it's very interesting. So what got you interested in it and how did you get your start? Weather modification?
Yeah, so my background is in meteorology. I'm a meteorologist. I earned my degree in meteorology from the University of Oklahoma, and then I joined the program back in 2021, and that's whenever I became the state licensed meteorologist for the program. And the program has been ongoing for about 25 years now. And we're a nonprofit program or organization consisting of several water districts. And our goal is enhancing precipitation in the safest, most cost-effective way possible. And we also cover an area of 10 counties, and we also call this our target area. And the program also falls under the umbrella of the Texas Weather Modification Association, which is also comprised of 4 other seeding programs across the state.
Oh, I knew it had been going for a long time. I didn't know it had been going for 25 years. So that's
yes. So cloud seeding, actually, we can date it back all the way to 1891 in Texas.
Wow.
So, Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Back then, was it kind of a similar process?
It was more so there was a general, I believe. There's a couple of things I've been told, but from what I've been told, there is a general out in the El Paso area. And you know how it's kind of mountainous out there. But he had fought in several wars, and he had read, numerous accounts where rain would be following these wars or over the battlefield. And
Okay.
so they noticed that more rain occurred over the battlefield area than in other areas. So they believed that all of the smoke particles from the cannons and dynamite and all that stuff was seeding the clouds above.
Wow. Okay, that's major. That's cool. That's
Yeah.
very fascinating.
So he got a grant, I believe, from Congress or the Department of Agriculture, and they let him shoot something within the cannons off the mountains of in El Paso.
Wow.
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 Yeah.
So we've come a long way. We've come a long way from shooting into the clouds with cannons to flying airplanes, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I believe the results were inconclusive until it was tried again, later on with more, scientific material or more advanced material.
Yes, yes.
So, if I can get into a little bit, there's a lot of folks that are, I guess, somewhat skeptical, you would say, because you're seeing these clouds. How do you actually know that seeding them is doing anything? I'm assuming you all take a look at the same types of clouds and track rainfall of clouds that were seeded versus clouds that were not. Is that what you've done? Kind of modeled that?
Yes, so we we do have someone, his name is Archie Ruiz, out of Texas Tech. He does our analysis every year. So he goes back through and sees the clouds that we seeded throughout the year, and he kind of compares them to the unseeded clouds. And in real time, as a meteorologist, as I'm looking at radar, I do see that the clouds, are growing larger than the neighboring clouds often, or they have higher reflectivities. We've also done an analysis that shows that the seeded clouds versus unseeded clouds, or the control clouds, the seeded clouds actually produce a lot more rain and rain harder for longer amounts of time.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of that, so in our last news drop, everyone can check it out on the web. We have an actual article about cloud seeding. So in 2022, y'all seeded 57 clouds over the EAA targeted zone. That's our recharge and contributing zone. Mm-hmm. And it equated to an additional 283,500 acre feet of rainfall and almost 3,200 acre feet of recharge. So pretty incredible numbers.
And Brent, can you remind our audience what 1 acre foot is, just to put into perspective?
1 acre foot. Think of a football field with 1 foot of water on it. That's 1 acre foot. It's about 326,000 gallons. So we're talking about a lot of water.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the atmosphere is our biggest reservoir, so that's how I like to look at it.
Yes, I love that. So can you kind of explain to us what months you tend to operate in, and why would that be?
Yeah, so we operate from the months of April through September, and this is because this is when we see the most convective thunderstorms, which are the best candidates for seeding in this area.
Oh, nice. Okay. And can you talk, I know we've kind of talked about it, but can you take us through the process of like what it looks like with you and your team from start to finish in identifying the storms, the storm cells to seed, and what all of that entails?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at the beginning of the day, if you want to go from start to actual finish, I take a look at, computer models, surface and upper air observations. I also look at what's called a skew-T diagram, which shows the vertical profile of the atmosphere and other thermodynamic properties such as instability, temperature, moisture, winds, etc. These are taken with an instrument package that's attached to a weather balloon, and that's launched twice a day by the National Weather Service. And the two closest balloons launched to our target areas are Del Rio and Corpus Christi. So looking at these, we kind of get an idea of what the cloud bases and storm motions and temperatures and everything are going to be for the day. But next, I put together a forecast and notify the pilots of a standby time.
Okay.
So this is when, they've got the plane ready to go and they're waiting at the airport. And then we also have flares on the plane ready to go. So once I see cumulus start to develop on visible satellite, or I know a cold front or a dry line is advancing into the area, which also aids thunderstorm development, if conditions are right. And this is when I give the pilots a heading to where I believe we will begin seeding operations for the day. So I'm also monitoring radar at the same time, as well as tracking the pilot and what he's seeing. So as far as identifying a cell, there are, numerous physical properties we look for in cumuliform clouds. And these are, the cloud must have a strong updraft or inflow in order to carry the seeded material into the thunderstorm. Cloud depths have to be greater than 2,000 meters. The cloud top temperature, is at least -5 degrees Celsius, preferably cooler, up to -15 degrees Celsius. And also another interesting thing, lightning is a good indicator as well. And I tell, the pilots to report this every time they see a cloud to cloud or cloud to ground lightning strike. And this is because the positive charged ice particles tend to collect in the upper parts of a thunderstorm. And the negatively charged particles are in the middle and lower parts of the cloud. So these opposite charges attract, and cloud lightning is often produced. So it's a good indicator that there's ice particles in the cloud already.
Oh, wow.
Now, I've heard that cloud seeding can actually reduce or mitigate hailstorms. Is that true? Like, does it reduce the possibility of large hail kind of thing?
Yeah, so that's not a proven thing, but from a conceptual like kind of point, as meteorologists, we think of, we're adding, we have, say you have a 500-gallon bucket of water, and there's 5 ice crystals, right? So imagine those as like 5 big, large hailstones. But what we're trying to do is introduce more ice crystals into that bucket of water and create 10,000 ice crystals rather than, 5 large ice crystals. So, I think adding, or from what I've read, adding, the silver iodide flares is helping create more ice crystals to lessen the hail size, essentially.
Yeah, conceptually, that makes sense. It would be neat to do a study in the future to confirm that, but to me, it makes sense that it would have that effect.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not like a real time thing. It's more of like a before, it happens kind of thing. It's not like we're breaking up the hailstones up there in real time. Yeah. So like imagine, those hailstorms that have so much small hail falling, in big copious amounts. That may be an indicator that we prevented large hailstones from forming.
Wow. And so you were saying the types of clouds that are seeded, you called them convective, but you also used another name, right?
So we call cumulus clouds generally convective clouds because they're just like the big, tall, white, puffy looking
Okay.
clouds.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we're after.
Okay. And when you seed those, is it like instantaneous that the rain falls, or is it like you track it over a certain period of time?
It's more of we track it over a period of time. We've noticed that it takes about anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes to see any kind of effects of seeding immediately after. And it also just depends on the size of the cell as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this might be an off the wall question, but aircraft generally sort of avoid thunderstorms, and yet these pilots are flying straight to them.
I personally have not gone up before. I've been itching to go up, but I just haven't had the opportunity. Um, but Yeah, it can get bumpy up there from what my pilots have told me. They're very brave for what they do. They love it. They love the adrenaline rush.
And I'm like, it's a thrill. They're thrill
Yeah.
seekers.
It takes a very special pilot to do what they do, for sure.
And we already talked a little bit about the numbers, but you all have estimated almost 3,200 acre feet of recharge was added. So you're seeding over our recharge zone where the water actually goes in, the contributing zone where it contributes to the aquifer. And that's mostly in Uvalde and Medina County and parts of Bexar. And parts of Bexar because the airspace is quite crowded, right?
Mhm.
It's like you can't just go wherever you want in Bexar County.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we operate restricted aircraft, and there we have a large airport and multiple military operations going on. So, and it's also very heavily populated here. So we try to stay, on the western fringes of Bexar County whenever we do operate.
Another reason for that is you're seeding clouds out west that are moving west to east. So the sooner you seed them, the longer they have to drop rain over the target zone, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
You can tell there's a lot of thought that goes into this. Like it's a major undertaking and it's a major initiative.
It is. And, whenever I was in school, we took cloud physics, and we touched on this in class. And, I just never thought that I would be, in this career.
Oh, yeah.
But, I really love it. And it's very rewarding knowing that, we're helping produce a little bit more rainfall over the areas where we've really needed it, especially these past 3 years.
Absolutely. With all the drought, and we're currently in a pretty big drought right now. So this kind of stuff makes an impact. It makes a difference.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's right. When we're in a weather pattern like this, where we just have that high sitting over us, there isn't a whole lot of clouds to speak of, huh? It's not like there aren't any clouds that you can even target for weather modification right now.
Yeah, no, we can't. And one misconception of cloud seeding is that we create, rain out of nothing. We can't. We have to have, certain conditions present for us to, seed a cloud. We have to have a cloud. We can't just, come up with a cloud.
Yeah.
We don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's why conservation, especially right now, is so important because other things like our recharge dams and cloud seeding, they only work when we have, clouds in the sky or we have rain in terms of the recharge dams. So right now, conservation is key.
And one last kind of final question I want to ask you, Bria, is, if you had kind of thinking about our younger audience and people that are interested in becoming meteorologists and maybe doing what you do, what kind of advice or what kind of like path or trajectory do you think that they should go into or they should consider?
Yeah. So, I actually mentor high school students.
Oh, great.
And so they have, they do an internship program through their school or independent study. And from what I've seen and what I've found, getting involved in every different sector, private, public, media, is the way to go because, go talk to your National Weather Service and see if you want to be in government. Go talk to somebody at a college and see if you want to go into research later on in life and pursue your master's or your PhD if you want to teach, if that's your passion. Go to a local TV station and, kind of shadow the TV meteorologist and see what they do on an everyday basis. And then, just there's also a website called the American Meteorological Society, and there's tons of information on there as well, different career paths that you can take and whatnot. So I just think, also we have YouTube and all of that good stuff. So I think kids just looking that up on there and, kind of getting a feel for what it is like every day. So that would be my advice.
Yes. Thank you. That's excellent advice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Bria, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure our listeners are going to learn from a lot from this. I know I did.
Yes, I completely did too.
Thanks again.
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really like talking to the public about what we do.
More people need to know about it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Recharge Zone podcast. Have questions, ideas for topics, or things you would like to share with us? Well, reach out to us at rechargezone@edwardsaquifer.org.